Welcome to Novelist Spotlight. This is Mike Consul, your host. In addition to being the host of this podcast and interviewing novelists, I am a novelist myself. I have 3 published novels. My latest is titled Lolita Firestone, a supernatural novel, and it is set in Sedona, Arizona and Cairo, Egypt. My previous novel is titled Family Recipes, a novel about Italian culture, Catholic guilt, and the culinary crime of the century. And my first novel is named Hardwood, a novel about college basketball and other games young men play. And that story deals with issues ranging from depression and racism to sex, religion, and university politics. All 3 novels are listed in the episode notes. I hope you will buy them, I hope you will read them, and I hope you will thoroughly enjoy them. Now, on with our program. In the spotlight is Ben Fox, founder of Shepherd.com, an upstart competitor to Amazon and other major online booksellers. Ben Fox believes that books build better human beings, and he is on a mission to help everyone find the book that they didn't know they were looking for. He created Shepherd to add magic and serendipity to the online book discovery process, something that I think we could all agree has largely been lost since bookstores have become, they've been greatly diminished by Amazon and other online booksellers, and they're just not as available as they used to be. In fact, it seems like the bookstores that are open these days tend to be really niche, like a new age bookstore or a travel bookstore, what have you. Ben Fox, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Is there anything I said during the introduction that you need to edit?
No, that was fantastic. You nailed it.
Okay, good enough. Well, let's start with this website, Shepherd. What was the spark? Why did you create Shepherd? I mean, it was a little bit contained in some of my opening remarks that I pilfered from your website. But what was the real spark that made you decide I'm going to go up against the behemoth?
Yeah. So I mean, I love books and I've always wanted to create a website around them somehow, but I could never find the right angle. Like it felt like I was just doing the same thing Goodreads was doing, or several other sites. And I never felt like I had enough originality, to find a way in that would be different. And one day, it was actually in 2020, and I remember that I had been in a bookstore, and I wish I could remember which one it was, but it was a small indie bookstore. It was awesome. And I walked in, and they had put little index cards in front of books that the staff liked. And they just had a little note from the staff. And it was, if I remember right, it was like decorated a little bit. And it said something like, Andy loves this fantasy book, and it had a little, short line from Andy on why he liked it. And I remember thinking how great this was because this person's personality came through that little note and it made me interested in the book. And so I had this idea kind of towards the end of 2020 that I could do something like that while helping authors. Basically try to do an online system that helped people browse books in fun ways. And the ways we kind of do that is we ask authors, to recommend 5 books around a mood, a theme, or a topic. And doing that also exposes their personality. So it's kind of a cool way to bump into books where you're like, every book on this site is loved by someone, why did they love it? And you get to find out. And it's kind of a cool effect too, where it pulls you towards the author and their book, as a way to meet them. So that's kind of the spark that got it going.
I'm going to channel Jeff Bezos for a minute and say, well, but we already got that, Ben. It's called Amazon, Amazon.com, where you can search books. You can say what you're looking for. We have advanced searches that allow you to narrow it down. So what's the problem? What's wrong with my site?
Yeah, so I'm a big reader. I read over 100 books a year, and so the other side of this is I have always wanted more tools to kind of hone in on specific books, and not just books in the massive 17 million books that are out there. I wanted ways to say, okay, show me science fiction books with AI, or show me literary books, based in the South. So I wanted like more nuance to those that Amazon's keywords didn't have. And Amazon has slowly added so many ads that it feels when I go to search them, it's still probably best in the industry. I think I like it better than Goodreads, but it feels very commercial and it doesn't have, I don't know, any soul. So I wanted to do something that made it more fun to like browse for books like you're walking around a bookstore, so that's really it. It was more to, also scratch my own itch of like, I look for a lot of books and I wanted cool ways to meet them.
So how do you replicate a bookstore online? There's only so much you can do, but Shepherd is replicating the bookstore experience by doing what?
Yeah, so we just turned 3 years old, so we're still a baby. But what we're trying to do is help people follow their curiosity from different genres or topics, and eventually other concepts, and just kind of whatever intrigues you, just keep following it. So if you land on shepherd.com, you can start with a big genre. You can search science fiction. And then on the science fiction page, you might see a book recommendation list by an author that's the best near future science fiction, and you go to that page and you introduce you're introduced to 5 books and why she loves those books, and then from there you might jump to a specific concept, like maybe you jump from there to robots. It's kind of trying to feed your curiosity and what intrigues you until you meet a book with that magic spark, because I think that's the best part of going in a bookstore is you're just filled with opportunity to meet something new, and you don't even know what you want or need. You just kind of find it in the stacks. That's what I'm trying to replicate. We still have a lot more to do there to improve that process, but I think if you try shepherd.com, there is like the nugget is there, and now we just need to keep developing and make it more fun.
And a link to the website is in the episode notes, so listeners can avail themselves of that. Now, I think in terms of I walk into a Barnes and Noble, which are harder to find these days because more and more of them have closed, but you've got these tables out front where they put books that they're promoting in a sense, promoting to the extent that they think here's books you're going to be interested in or likely would be interested in, books that are hot right now or books that our staff wants to emphasize. And there's serendipity that happens. That's a word you use yourself as well. Is there anything equivalent to those tables when you walk in a bookstore where they're putting those right out in front? Okay, you might be here to get a Philip Roth book. You might be here to get a Elizabeth Gilbert book. But as you're on your way, take a look at these.
Yeah, we're trying to find the right balance between helping authors who are in different stages. So, we work with a lot of authors who are new and want to get their book out there, or they're, still not noticed as much as they should. I mean, part of this site's mission is to help get exposure to authors because it is so hard out there to get in front of readers. So it's a learning process. And so we have a lot of ways that people can meet, authors who are less well known. And we just are trying our first, to fit that analogy, the first tables out front, because readers do want to mix. Readers don't just want to be told, okay, well, try this person you didn't know of. They also want to know what everybody else loves. And we're trying to find that balance. So one of the newest thing we did last year is we asked authors to share their favorite 3 reads of the year. And it's just purely, what did you love? What were your 3 favorite books of last year? It doesn't matter when they're published or anything else. And we took all their votes. We made a nice page for them to share with their fans. And then we summarized those totals so you can see, okay, best crime books of 2023, what are the top 50 or 100 books within that category? And then you can split it out to see which ones were brand new that year and which ones are like all time. And this was our first step towards this table analogy of, okay, well, readers do want to see, sometimes what the most popular books are. Let's make sure that we're giving them both of the things they need. So that was probably our first step towards that. And we have more features like that planned, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we balance this and make sure that it helps, not just Stephen King. He doesn't need much more publicity. How does it help other authors as well pretty heavily, but also doesn't ignore him, because readers do expect to see him if you look at, best horror books of 2023 or similar.
Right. Now you mentioned authors, and you say that you want to help authors meet more readers. How does that happen? I mean, you're just describing, I think, one way of doing it. Are there some other mechanisms you use on the site to help introduce readers to authors or author? I mean, from an author standpoint, let's put it this way. From an author standpoint, what does Shepherd do for authors?
Yep. The most effective thing we do for authors is we help them get in front of the most likely readers for their book if they do the format correctly. So we only have two formats right now, and the one I generally recommend because it's the most effective is that authors recommend 5 books they love around a topic, theme, or mood that is close to their book. And the idea here is you share 5 books you love that are close to yours. We put it up on the site and we do a lot of work to help readers within that group to find it. And they meet you and your book at the top of that list. And then each book recommendation exposes your personality or expertise, and that further gets people interested in you and your book. And the numbers behind this have gone very well. This was the format we launched with, did a lot of testing. And the whole idea here is if, for example, I wrote a historical fiction book about the Battle of the Bulge in World War II, and I create a list, about the best historical fiction books set in World War I or II, that I know anybody coming to my list is also going to be interested in my book because I've honed in on them. And this is the main thrust of the site. And that's, we help a lot of authors find where they can, do this list. And it doesn't work for all authors if they don't read within some area of their book. You can get pretty creative with it. But yeah, we do a lot of help there to try to figure out exactly where they might focus it if they need that help. But that's the main way we help authors currently. And I'm working on additional formats to do similar. Like, for example, hopefully towards the fall, we'll be launching a interesting facts feature where authors can share an interesting fact or a story, and we will put it up and help connect it to the topics and everything else. And so a reader who might be looking for, let's tell me some interesting World War II facts or stories, they can see one and engage with it, and then it directly pitches the author's books. And that's what I'm generally trying to do as we grow, is create things that delight readers while helping authors kind of connect around that subject.
Now, you reached out to me because you saw that I had a new novel out there. And is this part of the process you go through? You see new books that are released, you're reaching out to the authors and saying, hey, you should really be on Shepherd. How does that work? Is that part of your process, that you're reaching out to authors on a one-by-one basis?
Yes, definitely. We reach out to some. We don't have enough, we don't reach out to too many, but like in the early days, we reached out to a lot to try to fill out all the gaps we had. Like, for example, the first year, I basically went category by category, like, oh, we don't have any books about Buddhism or World War II or American Revolution or science fiction or hard science fiction. And I tried to fill those gaps so that we have a more complete site. Now we've reached that point where we have good coverage so that readers are not disappointed when they visit and they're like interested in something and they go. So right now we reach out to, let me think, I want to say about 50 authors every day during the week, just to kind of, who have new books usually that look interesting to us. And we say, hey, would you be interested in doing this? There's no, it's totally free. There's no cost to it besides their time, of course. And we try to make it as simple as possible, where they just fill out a Word doc and send it back. But yeah, we do reach out to, it would probably be around 200 authors. And then we get a lot of referrals now and a lot of writing groups also.
So if an author listening to this thinks, well, I should be on Shepherd, they can go to the site and there's a way to go ahead and register their book and get it on the site.
Yeah, so it's the only way for authors to be on the site is if they do a recommendation list or a favorite 3 books list, but I recommend the former. So forauthors.shepherd.com is our author site, and kind of goes through the format and data and shares business model and answers, 50 questions. So they go there and they would just email us, forauthors@shepherd.com, and we send them a template to fill out. And that's really kind of the way they take part. It's, your book is included as part of your recommendation list. The only way to kind of enter the editorial side of Shepherd is if another author recommends your book. Otherwise, our main focus is on getting readers to your list so they can meet you and your book through that list.
Gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned Goodreads earlier, which used to be an independent site, but then Amazon bought it. You're not a fan of Goodreads, is my understanding. And Goodreads, I think, is trying to do what you're doing, but I think in your estimation, they're failing at it.
Well, I don't think they are. I think that Goodreads, I'm frustrated and disappointed. Basically after the Amazon acquisition, mostly it seems like what they focused on, from what I can see from the outside, is Kindle integration, which, hey, all power to them. That was the reason they bought it. But what I'm frustrated about is they have not done any work to improve the reviews. They dropped a lot of features that were trying to help authors, and they really just haven't changed anything. They finally, gave it a design facelift, but there's so many, it's basically just a big database of books. And I feel like they could be doing so much more for authors and readers. And that's what frustrates me is, as a reader, I waited for years for them to build more options for exploring books like I wanted. And that's ultimately why I started Shepherd, is I got frustrated because it's not really helping. And so that's most of my frustration with it. I think the original, founders had a great idea and they were passionate about it. And I think unfortunately, once they sold, Amazon's focus was really Kindle integration. And yeah.
Gotcha. Kind of just an extension of Amazon
Yeah,
and their tools. So are you a writer yourself, Ben? Do you write? Do you write books? Or are
I
you
do
an
not.
inveterate reader?
I'm just a reader. I might one day try to write a book, but if anybody who is on my newsletters knows, that is a big struggle for me in terms of writing. But my brother is a writer, so I got to watch some of what he went through, pitching his book to agents. He's currently working on a nonfiction book, so I get a lot of that from him.
Sure. Yeah. And who has time to write when you're reading 100 books a year, as you do?
Yeah.
Why do you read so much? I mean, that's an author's dream come true about people reading very aggressively and 100 books a year. We live in a world now where there's so many distractions. People don't. I mean, I commonly ask people, "What are you reading these days?" And so often the answer is, "Oh God, I can't remember the last time I read a book. It's been years." And it's like, why?
Yeah.
But the truth is, people are reading takes effort, and there's a lot of mindless things that we are given to do, whether it's watching TV or play video games or what have you, repetitive and kind of mindless. Why do you read so much? What does it do for you emotionally, mentally?
Yeah, and I should note I read real fast, so it sounds impressive, but it's also kind of not, because I read so fast. So, I mean, I just love stories and seeing the world through another person's eyes. You know, at least for like kind of the escapism fictional part, is I love getting to know a character as if they're real and just watching them go through, some kind of crazy event. I read a lot of science fiction, fantasy, historical fiction, and then nonfiction, mostly in history and other things that I just want to learn more about. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. You said as if they're real. If you talk to your brother, he'll
Mhm.
tell you characters are real. Fictional characters are real. You don't know that unless you actually write. And but they are real, just like dreams are real, just like hallucinations are real. We just don't regard them that way most of the time because we tend to overthink things rationally and think that anything that's metaphysical is somehow not. And characters are pretty much metaphysical, certainly to the
Yeah.
author, even though we put them into print form and all. Let me ask you about how you got started. You say we, but is
Mhm.
this strictly your money, or did you get some people to contribute money to the launch of the site?
Yeah, so I put in a large chunk of savings to get it going. And now let's see, well, I go business model too, but right now we also have a membership that right now we have author members, and then I'm hoping to launch reader memberships later this year. So we have about 650 authors who are members paying 50 or $100 a year to help support what we're building. And then they get some fun little perks out of that too. So that's like why I say we. There's also, I've got a small team that helps me, build and run all this. So sometimes I like saying we because I don't want people thinking that somehow I'm able to build all of this on my own. So yeah.
So what is the business model? Well, how do you generate revenue to sustain it? Now, you mentioned authors as members. I mean, that alone could bring quite a bit, considering how many people are writers out there, how many people have books that they want to promote. Are there some other means of drawing revenue?
Yep. So I've learned in the last year that the memberships is the only path forward as a book website, which I go into detail kind of in the FAQ. But we also make a substantial amount of revenue from affiliate sales of books. So if somebody clicks from our site to buy a book at Amazon or bookshop.org or eventually other bookstores that we add, we get a small cut of that. I was hoping that that would be a very large chunk of our business model. In the last year, I've realized that because of the nature of affiliate programs and because how little the percentage is, it's impossible to kind of reach break even on the cost of building this and maintaining it. So that's why we've kind of shifted as of a month ago more towards the membership model, because we realized that was the only way to go. But we also get a lot of funding from affiliate book sales. And then we do a little bit of display ads, even though I hate them. I'm hoping that as we get more memberships, I can strip those off the site. I've tried to keep them very minimal, but they provide, they basically fund each month the servers, an image CDN and some of the software we use to license all the book data. So yeah, our business model is really memberships, affiliate revenue from book sales, and display ads right now.
Talk about the name. You named it Shepherd. What's the implication?
Yeah, so I had purchased that domain many years ago, and always thought it was kind of a cool brand name. And I liked it because it was kind of a feeling of soft guidance. And I don't know, I just kind of liked it as a strong brand name. And I thought it was a great fit here for helping people find books they love, kind of shepherding them to new books. So that's really all there was to it. No religious overtones. I get asked that a lot.
Well, it's a suitable name for what you're doing, and it's also memorable. I think it's easy to remember, and yeah, the idea of shepherding people to the books they're looking for, or maybe not looking for, but they fit their taste, makes a lot of sense. Now, could you ever foresee a day uh, when Shepherd would open physical bookstores in maybe some key markets like Manhattan and Seattle? I realize you're very early in this process, and it's like, we're still trying to get a lot of traction here. But as you look at your business plan, and you also just think in terms of projection, just if we really take off in a big way and we've got resources, would that be a place where I would direct them or not? Or do you think physical bookstores, maybe you feel like physical bookstores really have a lot of limitations, one of which I'll just say I go into physical bookstores because I want to support them. But oftentimes I go in there and the book I'm looking for isn't there. And then it's like, well, I can order it from them, but I didn't even need to make the trip to the bookstore to do that. But that aside, could you ever envision a day when Shepherd has physical bookstores, maybe even just a few of them in key markets?
Yeah, and I should say I love bookstores, and yes, it's definitely something I've thought about. But until we kind of get to a break-even point on the site and kind of get it going, I wouldn't even, let it enter my head, because last year we met about 50% of our costs, and so I'm hoping this year to get that closer to 75 to 80%. So once we kind of break even on our costs, because the main cost is developing all the features. We're going to launch a bunch of reader features, and we want to keep that going, plus maintain the existing ones. So the most important thing is just, focusing on that for now. But yeah, it's something I'm interested in. I've definitely thought about it in the past as well. I'd love to be in a position where, Shepherd could do something like that and make it a bookstore in a big city that is designed, more to help authors as well as readers, and the same concepts around serendipity.
Right, right. So, how do you promote Shepherd? Obviously, reach out to authors. Are there some other ways that you promote it that, obviously coming on a podcast like this and getting the word out as part of that? Are there any other ways that you're looking to promote, whether you're doing it now or you're trying to reach that point?
Yeah. So from a marketing standpoint, assuming readers, because authors, I do podcasts like this, or, my name gets passed around, or we say, hi. But for readers, we had about 5 million visitors last year. And probably 75% were from search engines. That was kind of has been my focus for the first 2.5 years that Shepherd has been around, is making sure that the site is optimized and treats, search visitors well from Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo. So that's a big bunch of our traffic. The other 25% is, long tail stuff from social networks, Twitter, Facebook. We make it easy for authors to share. So we've got a fair bit there. We don't have our own social media presence yet. That's kind of, for a site like ours, it's the least valuable traffic at this stage. It's something I'll do down the road. So our first focus has really been search engine, making sure we're all set up there, getting all the different features, shipped that support that. And then what I'm focused on now, in addition to that, is email. And what we're working on next is launching a personalized book recommendation newsletter. And it'll start pretty simple and then kind of grow from there. But the idea is somebody can go to Shepherd, they will pick some favorite books or authors and genres of theirs. And then every week or 2 weeks, we will send them a very simple email that suggests some places to browse for books by sharing those book recommendation lists by authors. So it's an idea we've been wanting to do for a while, to start expanding to email and then hopefully build up a big list of book lovers who love what we're doing and want to get book recommendations every week or two.
Now, do you, maybe I missed this, but do you attend book fairs? I know that there's a lot of travel involved in that and there's expense involved in that. I'm not sure that makes sense for you, but it would seem that spreading the word at book fairs, is there an opportunity for you to do that? Have you been doing that?
No, I haven't. I don't come from the book industry, so this has been a lot of learning new things about like publishing and, everything, honestly, besides what my brother's told me just from his perspective as a writer. So I have not gone yet. I'd love to one day. We're moving this summer, so I'm in the midst of utter chaos until probably next year. But I would love to go to some book fairs eventually and just kind of get a feel for them. They're great. Probably a better way for us to say hi to publishers and authors and people in the industry. Not as much sometimes readers, because we just have to. Eventually it might be as we get reader features, but yeah, it feels like those are more industry focused. Have you been to any? Is it
not real. I don't really attend those. I just don't have time. I write, but I have a full-time job as a magazine editor too, so I don't. But I've been to one in the past, even before I was doing what I do now. But I look at publishing companies and I think about how frustrated they are also that Amazon has such dominance, and the idea that there's another site that like Shepherd that might be an outlet for their authors and their books might be appealing. So I don't know. So you're on the move. Where are you located now?
Yeah, I live in northern Portugal, and
wow.
I'll be moving over to about 8 hours away to France, but always cross country, even though it's EU, is a little complicated. So yeah.
But you're a U.S. citizen, or you grew up in the United States, is that right?
Yeah. I grew up in the USA and dual citizen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. The good life out there, reading books, drinking cafe au lait and such.
Exactly.
Have you had any victories so far? You've got the site up. Have you had any big or small victories that you can point to?
Well, I mean, I think the fact that we received 5 million, visitors last year, that's a huge one and feels good. So I mean, that's probably, in terms of watching readers use the site to find books. I think the other ones are just, the little emails I get from people, saying thanks and that they found books they didn't know. I use it to find books, so I know, it's kind of scratching my own itch that I originally wanted to do. So all those things I'd say are pretty big wins. We've had tons of amazing authors, share books, which I can't, there's so many that I couldn't even mention, but I mean, if you browse the site, there's so many interesting ones. One I saw last week was a great one about books you should read before visiting Japan, which I bookmarked because I'm hoping to visit that country in a few years.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm going next year. My wife and I are
really?
going. So, and I've got a couple of those kind of set aside for exactly that purpose. Going to a country after you've, read deeper about the history and all that and the culture is always more rewarding.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll run into you there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to register my novels for it, and I'm going to support the site. I think this is a great idea, and any time we can get more organizations out there that are promoting books and helping readers come together. I think what often happens, Ben, is somebody hasn't read a novel in a long time or a book. Somebody recommends something, says really good, you should check it out. They try it. It's really not to their taste. And then they decide, I'm really not a reader. Well, it's not that you're not a reader.
Yeah.
It's that you didn't come across the right material. Tastes are so different. I very rarely recommend books to anybody because I just know that books that have been recommended to me, it's just so nuanced that the chances of my liking a book the way somebody else likes a book is very small. So you just go out there and you find the stuff you like, and you go from there. And I do take recommendations, but the fact is, um, it's it's very difficult to really pinpoint a person's taste in books. But obviously, you guys are that's your secret sauce right there, is introducing people um, to their the kind of material they like to read, and authors to new readers and so on. So I'm looking forward to being a member of the site. So anything you should leave us with here, Ben? I appreciate the information, but any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
Yeah, and I should mention, like, our big focus for readers is, as we build more reader features, it's entirely based around trying to help them find books they love, not just books they will like. So, for example, right now I'm developing a review format called, Book DNA Review, in the sense that it asks you a bunch of questions about the book each book you read, and you profile it. And the whole idea here is to build like kind of a book DNA profile of books you love, so that we can match you with other people who love those books, and then see what else they loved. So the big push we're doing over the next couple of years as we ship these reader features is trying to help readers also connect to books they will likely love through that profile. So that is like similar, that's the focus. Right now we have these books you can meet through the authors and why they loved them. And then we'll be trying to add on to that of, okay, you tell us what you love as well. And then we're going to try to help you find better matches, to hopefully keep feeding that love of reading, instead of feeling like you're getting a dud. Cause I talk to readers, and that's one of their biggest frustration points, is every time they take a risk and try a new author, it's a big gamble for them if they're only reading 12 books a year. And so I want to try to help that improve that ratio, because not only would that help new authors and authors who are not getting enough, readers, I think it would make readers a lot happier. So that is our big focus.
Is there any chance that audiobooks will eventually make the site? I know that's a whole different format.
Yeah, I mean, we have a link on the site we just added in January to audiobooks. It's not working real well. We're actually this week and next week going to be trying to fix it so it only shows up if there is an audiobook, because we're trying to make it easy for people to preview and see which books have audiobooks. It's actually a weird technical challenge. So I am working towards that. And then we likely will try something, long term, to expose those in different ways. But we do have some things there. Yeah.
Okay. My guest has been Ben Fox. He is the founder of shepherd.com. The link about shepherd.com, you know how to spell it, but the link is in the episode notes. Check it out. An upstart competitor to Amazon and Goodreads and other online booksellers. Ben, thank you for taking the time, and I wish you best of luck. I really am going to join the site. I'm looking forward to it, and I wish you the best of luck with the project.
Thanks, Mike. I'm looking forward to seeing your list.